The old mansion on the outskirts of town stood as a testament to decades of silence and abandonment. Locals whispered about the cursed night that had sealed its fate, a night drenched in mystery and horror. When Ellie, a curious university student, decided to explore the mansion for her paranormal research project, she dismissed the warnings as small-town superstition. Armed with a flashlight, a camera, and a sense of adventure, she entered the creaking doors, unaware of the nightmare waiting for her. As she wandered through the grand, decaying halls, the air grew colder, and faint whispers echoed around her. The paintings on the walls seemed to follow her every move, their eyes glinting in the dim light. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into darkness. Ellie fumbled for her spare battery when she heard a guttural growl that reverberated through the mansion. Panic seized her as heavy footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. She pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing, as the shadows seemed to come alive. The cursed night unfolded its wrath. Unseen hands clawed at her arms, dragging her deeper into the mansion. Doors slammed shut behind her, trapping her in a labyrinth of terror. The whispers turned into anguished screams, revealing the mansion's dark pasta family ritual gone horribly wrong, summoning a malevolent spirit that now claimed the house as its own. Ellie's camera captured glimpses of the horror, a pale figure with hollow eyes, a gaping mouth that emitted unearthly wails. Desperate to escape, she sprinted through the corridors, only to find herself in the same room again and again. The mansion was alive, its walls shifting to ensnare her. The final recording on her camera, later recovered by authorities, showed Ellie standing frozen in a dimly lit room. A voice whispered behind her, "You will stay with us forever." The screen went black. Ellie was never seen again, but locals swear they can hear her screams echoing on stormy nights, a chilling reminder of the cursed night that claimed yet another victim. In a remote village nestled deep in the English countryside stood an ancient mansion, abandoned for decades. Local legends spoke of a mysterious chest sealed in the basement, rumored to contain an unspeakable curse. Few dared to approach the mansion, but those who did never returned, or if they did, they were never the same. One stormy evening, for friends Emma, Liam, Sophie, and Max stared each other to enter the mansion. Their plan was simple: find the chest, open it, and prove the legend wrong. They armed themselves with flashlights and headed into the decrepit house, the floorboards groaning under their footsteps. The basement was colder than they imagined. A heavy, oppressive silence hung in the air. In the far corner, partially hidden beneath a dusty sheet, they found the chest. It was made of dark oak, adorned with ancient symbols carved deep into the wood. A rusted, iron lock held it shut. Emma, the bravest, stepped forward. "It's just a box," she whispered, trying to hide her fear. Max handed her a crowbar, and with a loud, echoing crack, the lock broke. As the chest creaked open, a foul wind filled the room, carrying whispers that chilled them to the bone. Inside, there was only darkness and unnatural, consuming void. Emma reached inside, but as her hand touched the bottom, she screamed and fell back. The room grew colder, and a shadow began to rise from the chest, forming into a grotesque, humanoid figure with eyes like burning coals. "You shouldn't have opened it," the voice echoed, deep and otherworldly. Sophie screamed and ran for the stairs, but the door slammed shut. The shadow lunged, its form shifting and growing, enveloping Max. His eyes widened in horror as the shadow consumed him, leaving only a withered husk. Liam tried to fight back, swinging the crowbar wildly, but it passed through the entity like smoke. The shadow engulfed him next, leaving Emma and Sophie cornered. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in. The whispers grew louder, now forming words: "One will survive. One will carry the curse." Sophie pushed Emma aside and bolted for the door. It opened just enough for her to squeeze through, but as she looked back, the shadow caught Emma, pulling her into the chest. The lid slammed shut, and the whispers stopped. Days later, Sophie was found wandering the village, eyes hollow, repeating the same phrase over and over the chest is hungry. It wants more. The mansion remained, the chest waiting for its next victim, the curse living on. Sophie was taken to a nearby hospital, her mind fractured by what she had seen. No one believed her story. They called it shock, a trauma-induced delusion. But deep down, she knew the truth. The shadow from the chest had marked her. She could feel it. As days turned into weeks, strange things began to happen. At night, Sophie heard the whispers again, soft at first, then growing louder. Shadows flickered in her peripheral vision, always vanishing when she turned to look. Her friends were gone, but their faces haunted her dreams, their voices pleading, accusing. "You left us. The chest isn't done with you." Unable to bear it any longer, Sophie returned to the mansion. She had to end it, armed with a flashlight and an old, leather-bound journal she had found in the village archives written by the last known survivor of the chest. She stepped inside. The air was colder than before, the shadows deeper. She descended to the basement, each step echoing. The chest was waiting, exactly as they had left it, yet it seemed alive. The wood pulsed, the carvings glowed faintly. The journal spoke of a ritual, an ancient incantation to seal the chest forever. But it required a sacrifice. Sophie's hands shook as she read the words aloud, the language foreign and guttural. The shadows writhed, the temperature dropping further with each word. Suddenly, the chest burst open. The shadow entity erupted, its form larger, more terrifying than before. It lunged at Sophie, but she didn't run. She held her ground, continuing the incantation, her voice growing stronger, defiant. The entity roared, the sound shaking the walls, but it began to weaken, its form flickering. Sophie's eyes widened with realization the ritual was working. The shadows around the room gathered, pulled back toward the chest, the entity struggling, fighting. Then, the whispers changed. They became a single voice, "Emis. Sophie, don't let it win." Tears streamed down Sophie's face as she finished the final words. The shadow gave a final, ear-splitting scream before being sucked back into the chest. The lid slammed shut, the carvings glowing bright, then fading. The room fell silent. Sophie collapsed, exhausted, her body shaking. She had done it. The chest was sealed. Months later, the mansion was torn down. But the chest disappeared. No one knew where it had gone or who had taken it. And somewhere, in a forgotten corner of the world, the whispers began.